Hi, everybody. It is Natalie. Thank you for being here today. And today I have a little Mercury in retrograde in Capricorn story time for you about a company called SmileDirect Club, which has abandoned their customers and basically closed their doors as a company. And I think it's very apropos because this company, we are talking about Mercury retrograde in Capricorn, and this company SmileDirect is a company that helps people, or quote unquote, helped people fix their teeth or align their teeth so that their teeth look better through the many people are familiar with like the Invisalign process or getting braces, and it was marketed as a much cheaper alternative and quicker alternative to getting braces or going directly through your dentist. Now, I'm going to go ahead and make sure that I'm up and running here. Welcome, welcome. Thank you for being here. And it is much cheaper. Okay, I'm all here. And so whenever you watch this video, thank you for being here. Appreciate it. And I am going to share my screen. Let me go ahead and do that. And let's see. Okay, well, we don't need that. Okay. Sorry, guys. I always have to get my act together here at the beginning, but we are going to go ahead and look at the astrology of what has been going on with this Mercury retrograde story. And it is very much Mercury retrograde. So let us begin. So the story is actually kind of close to my heart in a way, because I didn't use SmileDirect, but I did use Invisalign through my dentist in order to fix my crossbite. And I did that a couple of years ago. And I did not use SmileDirect because I had heard, from my dentist that this company had a lot of problems and that, best to stay away from it. But SmileDirect did serve a lot of customers. It had a very large customer base. It like I said, was touted as a cheaper, not cheap, because it was still almost $2,000, I think, with SmileDirect Club if you were trying to straighten your teeth. But traditional braces could run you anywhere from $3,000 to $8,000 and took quite a long time. Whereas SmileDirect was saying, you don't have to go to a dentist. We'll send the molds to you, which you can fit to your teeth, or you can go into one of our retail locations and get molds for your teeth. And basically we'll send you your aligners in the mail, which you wear. And they gave people what was called a lifetime smile guarantee, saying that you can come back, and if your teeth don't straighten the way you want them to, you can come back and fix them. And SmileDirect went public, meaning it was traded on the New York Stock Exchange, actually on the NASDAQ, as of 2019, September 2019. So this was right before the pandemic. And a lot of people were using SmileDirect during the pandemic because they couldn't go to like a dentist office, but they wanted to take advantage of the time at home to kind of straighten their teeth and for once finally fix their teeth. And so they did gain a lot of traction during the pandemic. But the companies had many, many problems since they went public, since they had an IPO in 2019. The company has had major, major issues and problems. They never became a profitable company. And with over 900 million in debt, they declared bankruptcy on September 29th of this year. Now, even though they declared bankruptcy on September 29th, their doors were still open because they were hoping to restructure the company. However, the restructuring did not work. And so no one, came in and joined the company in their efforts to save the company. And so on December 8th, the company made this announcement, which is right here. It's just a one-page FAQ to their customers and about what to do, because some people were in the middle of getting their teeth fixed. Like they needed to order more aligners, they needed to finish their treatment. Some people had just ordered their aligners and they now are faced with a position of having like no customer care, no support, no check-ins. Existing customers, they basically told them, hey, you can't, at this point, like we're shutting down our customer service. We're shutting everything down. You can't get refunds right now. You can't get refunds. We have to go through the bankruptcy process. And for those of you that still owe money to a financing company, because some people did finance their $2,000 to get their teeth straightened with SmileDirect. Some people actually did finance the $2,000 and were paying monthly on that. And they told people who are paying monthly in the middle of their treatments, you're not going to get any more aligners. We've got no customer support for you, but you still have to keep paying on this debt. You still have to keep paying it. And there's nothing we can do about it because everyone financed with an outside company on the Smile Pay plan. And they were told to reach out to HFD at this 1-800 number if they have questions about their financial obligations. So obviously, this is a major hit in the stomach or hit in the gut to the customers of SmileDirect, prior customers, current customers. And the hard part about it is they were still, from the time that they declared bankruptcy on September 29th of this year, they were still taking orders from people. They were still hiring some people. So tons of people lost their job. I guess they had over 6,000 employees. They all lost their jobs. Right before the holiday, okay? Right before this Christmas in early December. They all lost their jobs. The customers are left waving in the wind and, they have to keep paying on debt that they are not even getting a service for. So this is obviously like very traumatic for customers. And it's interesting because SmileDirect came out with this FAQ on December 8th of this year. And Mercury retrograde in Capricorn officially started on December 13th of this year. So obviously we're still talking about this year. So December 13th was only a few days ago. So this is like a news story that is developing right now. And actually what got my attention was a story that ABC News did exactly on the day that Mercury went retrograde on December 13th. ABC News did a story basically like, what are the customers supposed to do? And SmileDirect has abandoned their customers. And it really started to gain a lot of traction in the news around that time frame, right before the Mercury retrograde hit and was stationing, but also right on the day that it went retrograde. And so this is like a Mercury retrograde and Capricorn story. And that's why I'm calling this video Mercury retrograde and Capricorn Storytime. As we know, Capricorn has to do with business. It has to do with finance. It has to do with large, powerful organizations. We also know that the ruler of Capricorn is Saturn, and we know that Saturn in the human body rules the teeth, the joints, the bones, everything like that. So SmileDirect, of course, is a company that helps align people's teeth. Okay. And so this is a very much and also the customers not being able to get any refunds. And of course, Mercury is a planet having to do with commerce and Capricorn has to do with business. And so we have this very quintessential Mercury retrograde and Capricorn news story that basically dropped right as the company made this announcement telling their customers, FYI, pretty much you're screwed. And so this is a very big deal. And I also feel like it is a big deal because we are approaching like the final degree of Pluto and Capricorn as well. And I'm going to talk about this more later about this company where they went public and did their IPO right around that time in 2019 where Saturn was in Capricorn, Pluto was in Capricorn, and the South Node was in Capricorn. And so this is very much a product of the Pluto and Capricorn times that we've all been living in for the last 15 years. And it's very much a part of, ripping off the customers, ripping off the people so that, so that the owners of this company can become more wealthy. And it is about, as we look at the chart for the original IPO, when this company went public, as we look at the timed chart for this back in 2019, we're going to see like the elements of greed and, unchecked greed kind of showing up in the chart. And as Pluto is moving out of Capricorn, and finally in 2024, Pluto will move into Aquarius finally, forever for the next 20 years at least. And so as we're in this like segue phase of Pluto and Capricorn, and these businesses are like on their last dying breath and screwing over all their customers, we can really see the brutality of the economic issues that we've all dealt with Pluto and Capricorn. And so I am going to go ahead and share the chart with you guys. I thought this was a fascinating study. We will be looking at this is SmileDirect's chart for when they went IPO. So when they became a publicly traded company, this is the chart that represents that. And I have the chart timed for the exact time that the stock exchange opened up and their shares started trading on the market on September 12th of 2019. So I have that as kind of their founding chart. Now, the company was originally founded in 2014, but it didn't become like publicly traded on the stock exchanges until 2019. And unfortunately, I couldn't find anywhere like the original formation of the company back in 2014, although I do have some interesting commentary on that in general for you guys later relating to their beginnings in late 2013, 2014. And I just want to show you the original two guys that started the company. Okay. So these are the two guys, and this is Jordan Katzman and Alex Fenkel, who are now two of the youngest billionaires in the United States. At least that was the story in 2019 when the company went IPO. Okay. When the company first sold its shares on the market, it made these two founders of the company extremely rich and wealthy. And at the time that the company went IPO, the two founders were about 30 years old at the time and were going through their Saturn returns in Capricorn at the same time that all of this was happening. And the big story was that these two are like the youngest, some of the youngest billionaires in the United States that we have back in 2019. Now we know that there are other billionaires under 30 in this country, like Kylie Jenner and things like that. But these two, the IPO in September of 2019 made these two some of the most wealthy individuals in America. So that happened for them. And this is Alex and this is Jordan, the two founders of the company. And this guy right here is Jordan's father. Okay. And Jordan's father was also the CEO of the company. So this is Jordan. That's his father. And you can see SmileDirect Club in the background there. And his father was a venture capitalist who put a lot of money into the company. And his father has a company called Camelot Venture Group. And I'm going to tell you guys why this is so important as we look at the original founding chart as of the IPO for this company, like why it's so important. So here's the father who heads up Camelot Venture Group, which is a venture private company that finances new and disruptive companies. And the father was involved in like 1-800-contacts and Quicken Loans and already had money. So the father was kind of funding this. and was a major investment player in the company. And also the uncle, who's not pictured here, but also his brother, the father's brother, or Jordan's uncle, was also the COO, or the chief operating officer in the company as well. So you can already see this is kind of like a friends and family business that went public and started trading on the stock exchange. And that is going to become important when we look at the chart in a little bit here. Now, the other thing I want to point out to you guys too is looking at this picture of Jordan Katzman, who's one of the founders of SmileDirect Club, here with the longer hair. Look at the coat that he's wearing. And I didn't notice this until like literally 10 minutes before I went live on this video. I looked at the coat and I was like, what is on his jacket? And what's really interesting to me, you guys, is that Jordan Katzman, one of the founders of this company, has the symbol for Mercury on one part of his jacket and the symbol for Venus on the other part of his jacket. So he's got Mercury symbol here and Venus's symbol here. Now, of course, this is a company that wants to make you look better and wants to make your teeth look better. And now the company, as I will show you the chart, has a Libra rising ascendant. And so, you know, they want to make you look better. They want to make you look good. And it is all about commerce and doing things better and doing things over the internet and all of that. So we've got this Mercury and this Venus on, and I don't know if he knows anything about astrology or not. If Jordan Katzman, probably not. And why is he wearing a coat with Mercury and Venus on his shoulders? But we are going to find that out here in a minute as we start reviewing the chart. So that is a little bit about the company. As I said, the company was traded on NASDAQ, no longer is trading because they went, because they're defunct. As of December 11th is what it says on Wikipedia. And December 11th was essentially 2 days before the Mercury retrograde. And they had 75 million in revenue, but they never turned a profit. Their expenses were always more. Their number of employees, 6,300. This is a big company, right? Like this is a pretty large company. Now, let's take a look at the IPO. So I found the date recorded, September 12th, 2019, the date that the company went IPO and started selling their shares on the market. And at that time, made that family very, very rich, because not only did the two children become the two children become billionaires at that time, but the father did as well. Okay, so the whole family at that point, family and friends, became billionaires at the time that the company went IPO. Now, it's interesting to me because one of the very first things that you guys will notice about this chart is this beautiful, and I'm being sarcastic right now, but this beautiful lineup of Saturn, the South Node, and Pluto all in Capricorn. And as we know, this whole configuration was going on, you know, before the pandemic even started, but they were kind of a pandemic business, and their business model had to do with, you know, doing everything from the comfort of your own home. So you didn't actually have to go visit a dentist in order to get your aligners. And so their company capitalized on that in a good way. But you can also see the major greed as well, too. And Saturn, South Node, Pluto, all in Capricorn, big business, big money, all in the fourth house of family. Okay. And the amount of family wealth and insider wealth and uncles, you know, brothers, father, like, of course, Capricorn is a sign that does have to do with patriarchal father, all of that, big organized, big business, all of that. So you can see the Saturn, South Node, Pluto in the fourth house, talking about this concentrated wealth and concentrated control in the hands of the family. And at that time, the nodes were, the North Node was in Cancer, in the 10th house, talking about the ambitions of the families and the hopes and the dreams and the recognition of the family. And, the nodes were in Cancer, Capricorn at the time with Saturn, Pluto. So this is a company. And what's really interesting is, a lot of times when companies go IPO, in this case, this company went IPO and the family still retained complete voting control and complete control over the company, which investment analysis warned about. They said, okay, when this company goes out onto the stock market, if you're trying to invest in this company, do beware that the family, especially the father of Jordan Katzman, has complete control, complete voting control over this company. Like, you're buying into this company that's never actually been profitable. It's had millions and millions of dollars in revenue, but it's never actually been profitable. So investors beware, and note that the family has complete control over this company. And so I think you can really see that concentrated energy. Now, of course, we would be looking at Saturn in a conjunction with the South Node, or K2, which the South Node is definitely going to weaken the power of Saturn and Capricorn. Because if we think about a business that is trying to operate in order to fix your teeth, right? Saturn in Capricorn is something you might think about, right? Okay, a business that is going to fix my teeth has Saturn in Capricorn. So, okay, cool, right? But the fact that, and I'm just being kind of glib about it, but I mean, it kind of fits the profile, right? Saturn and Capricorn Saturn having to do with the bones and the teeth and business and all of that. So you'd go, okay, cool, right? But at the same time, the South Node actually, from a business perspective, is not great when coupled up with Saturn, particularly in the sign of Capricorn, and really weakens the power of Saturn in Capricorn, which is in domicile in Capricorn. And the South Node has to do with sucking the material value out of things, particularly in a business situation. We're talking about draining the value out of something or sucking the value out of something. And so when the company went IPO and finally went IPO, basically the family, the fourth house being representative of the family here, all this pile up in the fourth house, became very, very wealthy and yet still controlled everything. But at the same time, the South Node there is a troublemaker, because this business is going to encounter so many freaking struggles along its short period of being a publicly traded company. So they went from 2019 to the end of 2023 is how long this company has been a publicly traded company. And during that time, they have literally, maybe the family got rich and things like that, but this company has experienced extreme hardship, actually. And I know it's hard to feel, I'm not saying we should feel bad for them, but because of the way they ripped off their customers. But here's a couple things as far as hardships that the company has had to face. And oh my God, Six of Swords, thank you for commenting, is here. I just saw your comment. And Six of Swords, she's commenting here and she says, I manage a dental program. SmileDirect has been causing issues for years. Horrible customer service. Yes. And I am going to show you in the chart where the horrible customer service actually comes into play and what that actually means. And horrible customer service, in my opinion, getting aligners without a dentist is almost unethical. Yeah. And what's interesting is the National Association of Orthodontists have been trying to come against this company for a long time because they're like, this isn't even ethical. And they filed tons of lawsuits against this company. But if individual dentists tried to speak out against them, they would threaten to sue them. And so it's going to be very interesting what stories come out in the aftermath of all of this from different dentists coming out with their point of views. And Invisalign works for a reason. Yeah, I had Invisalign too, and I did it under the care of a dentist. And thankfully I did, but they had a huge customer base and many people didn't. And Six of Swords says, hi, everyone. My cat is enjoying watching the chart on the screen. Hi, cats. Hi, how are you? So that is too cute. But yes, I totally agree with you. And it is very unethical. And we're going to talk about this chart is heavily influenced by Neptune. So we are going to see a lot of deceptive business practices that this company is engaging in. And what is it all for? It's all for this family getting wealthier, getting richer, getting money, and they're screwing over their customers. And we'll talk about where that is in the chart. So this company, when it did its IPO, has one of the crappiest IPO charts that, I mean, I do not know why these companies do not have astrologers employed on their staff, because we're dealing with billions of dollars here. And this company, when it went public, had an 8.9 billion valuation when it went public. But from the very beginning, this company has been plagued with issues. On their first day of trading, the stock lost value, 28% of its value on the very first day of trading, which investment advisors were saying like that hasn't happened since like 2000, right? Like this is one of the worst performing IPOs like in the history of companies. And damn, that is not good. And of course, if we're going to talk about a company being one of the worst IPOs in the freaking history of the stock market since the year 2000, then we can definitely look at the Sun and Mars conjunction in Virgo in the 12th house opposite Neptune. Shitty performance. And look at all the planets lined up in the 12th house. Okay. So we're going to talk, and the company itself, because it's a Libra rising here, the company, the ruler of the ascendant is also in the 12th house. Okay. Venus and Virgo, they're in the 12th house. So just an overall environment of shittiness. And we are going to break it down even more. So some of the things that this company dealt with was on April 14th of 2021, they suffered a cyber attack, which caused, I think it was $15 million of lost revenue. Okay, so they had a huge cyber attack in April of 2021. In August of 2021, they had a workplace shooting happen. And it was at one of their factories where they make the aligners. A disgruntled employee came in and shot one of the managers and some other people that were there, security guard and everything. And so they've had a major cyber attack. They've had a workplace shooting at one of their factories. They've been sued multiple times. They've had direct attacks from, the association, the Orthodontics Association in the United States. Like they've had multiple lawsuits. They've, the company Align that makes Invisalign, they were in a fight with them, in a non-compete fight with them for years and years as well. So this company has faced major problems and major issues since day frickin' one. And so it's not surprising that it's kind of ending this way. And it's not surprising that it went down. But at the same time, we're going to look at the chart. Okay. And so now that I've shared this is about one of the worst charts that you could have for an IPO. Like the ruler of the 12th, the ruler of the second house of money is this Mars and Virgo opposite Neptune. okay, square Jupiter, inflated values and things like that. We also have the sun square Jupiter. Okay, so Mars rules the second house of money, and the sun rules the 11th house of profits from business. And both the sun and Mars are stuck in the 12th house opposite Neptune. So that already is like a big piece of crap that landed on my front door. And so a couple of things I want to point out before we start really diving into things is just when we're looking at the formation of a company, what houses represent what. So the first house would represent the company itself, which we said is a Libra rising, 23 degrees Libra. The ruler is in Venus and Virgo in the 12th house. Okay, so the first house is the company itself. And the ruler of the first house is obviously very important for the company. The sixth house in general represents the company's employers. Okay, and we've got the moon and Neptune and Pisces in the sixth house. And we also have the ruler of the sixth house is Jupiter, which is right here in the third house. Okay, so the company's employees are going to fall into the sixth house. And when we're talking about the company's customers and their customer base, et cetera, we would be looking at the seventh house. Okay. The seventh house would also represent lawsuits. It would also represent investors or business partners. But most importantly, in this chart, it represents their customers. Okay. So we have Chiron in the part of fortune here in the seventh house, but the ruler of the seventh house is that Mars in Virgo opposite Neptune. Okay. Square Jupiter. So we've got that going on for their customers. We've got the employees representing the sixth house. As far as all these planets in the 12th house are concerned, I want to talk to you guys a little bit about how the ancients saw the 12th house in relation to astrology. And the 12th house was always seen, and again, like modern astrology has taken the 12th house and made it a bit less formidable and a bit less nasty. But nonetheless, when we're looking at an event chart or we're looking at the chart of a business, things like that, we really have to kind of stick to those traditional definitions, in my view. Now, I'm going to take a drink of water. Yeah, everything hidden in the 12th house, right? And their money and their profits from the business. The second house is the money of the business. The 11th house is the profit from the money that they make. Both those rulers, the sun and Mars, are both in the 12th house, hidden opposite Neptune. This company never made a profit. Not even, they went IPO in 2019, all the way up to when they closed their doors. They never actually made a profit. They had a lot of revenue, but never a profit. Okay. So a big old stink egg in that one, no profit. Okay. And the 12th house in traditional astrology does have to do with adversity. Okay, so we see the customers are stuck in the 12th house of adversity. Okay, and they're looking for answers. They're represented by Mars and Virgo. So they're not, the customers are going to keep, your teeth are really important. And it's a major medical issue when your teeth, because you're wearing these Invisaligners, these aligners that SmileDirect would make in their factories and then ship to people when they were just doing like molds of their teeth at home, would cause people's teeth to bleed, would cause their gums to recede. There's even a story on social media about a person whose tooth actually fell out as a result of using these aligners, right? So we see the Mars and Virgo representing the customers. And, their concern is for their health and the well-being of their teeth and getting their teeth fixed, right? Like I and asking a lot of questions, right? When we see Mars and Virgo, it's like, okay, I need a plan. I'm going to ask a lot of questions. We need solutions, right? The customer is really needing to follow up, and the customers did have to have like multiple follow-ups and check-ins with supposed doctors. I don't know if they were actual doctors or what, but really putting the customer's health in jeopardy, as we see the customer showing up in the 12th house and Chiron also showing up in the 7th house of the customer, like the customer really getting wounded or the customer really suffering as a result of what they're doing. And also, if you're doing an IPO and you're a company that's not profitable and you need to gain more market share and gain more customers, you don't want the customers to be in the 12th house, right? Because it will be hard to find customers then. And that was a big thing about their IPO, is the investment advisors were saying, they're not profitable. They need to gain more market share. They need more volume. They need more customers. But the customers are hidden from the business. Remember that the business represents the first house. So the customers are in the 12th house, hidden from the business and opposite Neptune. So the customer is showing up in a very weak manner in the chart of the business. And it's like, where are you going to find more customers, or how are you going to grow your customer base, right? And also the customers getting pissed off because they can't get answers. They're getting really bad service, right? They're hidden in the 12th house. They don't know what's going on. They have no idea. Like everything's just a blur. They're confused. And so the 12th house does represent adversity. The 12th house also represents anxieties and complexities. So a lot of complex things going on here, particularly in Virgo, right? Like this is a company that needs really good attention to detail. You are dealing with people's medical health, their teeth, and it is a process, right, of shifting people's teeth. And I think it's so interesting with Saturn and Pluto and Capricorn, of course, shifting and changing people's teeth. I think that's a really interesting kind of like association there with Saturn and Capricorn and Pluto and Capricorn, and Pluto representing the shifting of things and the changing of things and the transformation of things, and Saturn representing, of course, Saturn and Capricorn representing the business, the teeth, etc. So I think, but you've got the South Node right in the middle there between them. And so things do not go as planned whatsoever. They do not. And a lot of people are having major issues. I saw social media posts where people were like, yeah, it shifted my top teeth, but not my bottom teeth. So people not getting consistent results on things that they, and the thing is you can, with the customer representing Mars and Virgo in the 12th house, the customer is Mars and Virgo. They can go look at their teeth in the mirror and go, are they shifted? Did my gap close? Are my teeth straight now? They're looking at things very detailed and they want answers to their questions, but they're locked up in the 12th house and they don't know what's going on. They've been left in the dark. Okay. So the 12th house representing anxieties and complexities as well. And also, with the two houses that represent the money of the business, right? The second house and the 11th house, also in the 12th house in Virgo. It's like, okay, we need a detailed plan here. And they did have some detailed plans about what they were going to do. But at the same time, I think they all fell through as far as like making more money or gaining market share. Like all those plans fell through and none of them really held up. And so we see that aspect of the 12th house. Like the 12th house isn't necessarily a house where you're going to be on your A game. And to have all these planets in Virgo, like that is a little crazy. I'm getting comments. And Fly Me to the Moon says, They have horrible customer service, and I will be without retainers by next year because even after you finish your trays, you have to buy your retainers. Yes. Yes, fly me to the moon. And it's such an intensive process, right? Like you need retainers. Like, how are you supposed to get your retainers? And yeah, and they're trying this. A huge criticism is they're trying to shorten this process or whatever. And it's like shifting people's teeth is a very complicated thing, right? And you have to buy your retainers from them every 6 months for life. Wow. I didn't know you had to buy them every 6 months for your entire life. Fly me to the moon. I am so sorry that this has happened to you. Fly me to the moon says, I have my moon and rising sign in the 12th house. Do you offer personal chart readings? Yes, I do. And I'll post right after this video in post-production. I'll put the link to my website if you want to book a reading with me. It's all seamless if you'd like to book a reading. I'm so sorry, Fly Me to the Moon. That is absolutely horrible. And I do feel that they've really taken advantage of their customers very badly here. And Holly's here too. And Holly jumps in and says, it'll be interesting to see how it goes with their finance company. One might suspect predatory lending on that side too. Yeah, predatory lending. And I'm going to tell you guys, this is a Neptune controlled chart. Now we've got the family down here with the Saturn, Pluto, K2 becoming extremely wealthy from this entire thing. But this is a Neptune chart. This is one of those fucking slippery slope Neptune type of charts. And we're as the Mercury retrograde, we're going to talk about the Mercury retrograde too, that kind of where this news story became more public and people were learning more about it. But I kind of have to do the setup first. So kind of go with me there. But we've got the 12th house here, adversity, problems, anxieties, complexities happening. We also have the 12th house. When you're looking at like horror astrology or event astrology, the 12th house can represent bad luck, sad events. Okay. The 12th house can also be hostile to future activity. Okay. Very hostile to future activity. And the ancients called the 12th house the house of the temple of ill omen. Ill omen. So you don't need like the ruler of your 11th house and second house of money and profits. You don't need the ruler of the ascendant. You don't need your customers, your employees. Well, the employees aren't in the 12th house, but the employees are. I'm going to tell you guys what's going on with the employees too. But you've got so many aspects of the business in the 12th house. And so this is a very rotten position for this company to kind of take its first breath into as far as an IPO. Now, what's interesting is so many planets are in Virgo at the time of this IPO, and many financial astrologers will talk about how Virgo, or how the time frame of Virgo during the year is one of the like worst performing months for the stock market, where people's anxieties and nerves are higher and people are really looking at things in greater detail, and people getting nervous and freaked out and scared. And, it's interesting when they went IPO, because an article came out talking about, basically this IPO is just making the family richer. As we talked about, the lineup in the 4th house there, they still control the company. But it created a lot of anxieties as well, I think, with investors, which is why immediately their share price dropped, and the company dropped 28% in value in the very first day of trading. It was like, poof, that value went away. So this is not a good chart for starting a company or starting a business. Now, of course, the customers, it's interesting because like in the Mercury retrograde and Capricorn story that came out a few days ago, the media is like, the customers are obviously frustrated because they've spent so much time and money and effort on this business to straighten their teeth, right? Which is very Capricorn. Time, money, energy, frustration, businesses going out of business, refunds being held up. Like, this is very Capricorn anyway. And, refunds being lost, and people that told that they were going to be refunded, they don't have their refund, right? It's very Mercury retrograde in Capricorn for sure. And we'll talk more about that too. And so the 12th house, not great. Not a great place to have. And again, if you have personal planets in your own chart in the 12th house, I have 3 planets in the 12th house. And hey, I'm the first one to say my life hasn't been that easy. But at the same time, the 12th house can be great for intuition, spirituality, etc. So I don't want to completely dump on the 12th house, but when you're looking at a business's chart, I don't want to see all these planets. And again, Mercury is in Virgo, which is a very, Mercury in Virgo is a very strong position. But again, it's in the 12th house. Okay. And so we are going to, and it's so interesting because I mentioned before that Jordan, one of the founders of the company, look at Venus and Mercury in a conjunction in Virgo there. And of course, Venus is ruling the first house, and you've got that Mercury Virgo conjunction. Do you guys remember when I showed you guys Jordan's jacket that he was wearing with the Mercury and the Venus right there on his jacket? And those 2 planets are in a conjunction in Virgo in the IPO chart. And that Venus is interesting in the chart because the Venus also rules the house of debt in this chart. And, Uranus is in the 8th house of debt, and a lot of, surprising debts coming out of nowhere for them. But the founders actually tried to, you can see Venus is in a trine to Pluto there. Mercury is in a trine to Pluto. The company was actually, once the company went bankrupt, the families, the founding family members were going to try to put more money into it to save it, which we can see the ruler of the 8th house of debt is trying that Pluto in the 4th house of family. So you can see like the founding family may be trying to save the company by putting money into it, but it didn't work. But I just find that Venus Mercury conjunction in Virgo in the 12th house, especially since Venus rules the ascendant, to be very weird and creepy in a way, because he has that on his jacket right there. And that's some Illuminati shit right there. And I'm not a person who even really subscribes to any of that or even really cares about any of that. A lot of it, I don't know. I mean, whatever. But to me, that's just a very like, what are we doing here with? And at first I thought, did somebody like put that there? Is that, and then I looked at multiple copies of the picture and I'm like, no, he literally has Mercury and Venus on his jacket. And there it is in the chart. Okay. So also, I think it kind of says that he was the idea behind all of this. Like he was the main brainchild or idea behind doing all of this. And that, maybe it was his, and it's not to say that it was necessarily the worst idea ever, but like, there was no like thought to the future of what happens when, well, okay, I do think it was a really bad idea because you have to have orthodontists overseeing this kind of thing. And yeah, I don't know, you guys. I do not know why he has that Mercury Virgo there or that Mercury Venus on his jacket there, why the founder does, but I find that very intriguing. I don't think he knows anything about astrology. So what's he doing, But so anyway, you guys, it's interesting because of some of the comments, and I did mention, I found a reference to Jordan's birthday. This guy, I found a reference to his birthday, and I think he was born in May of 1989. It was really hard to find, but I did find something that said that he was born in May of 1989. So if he was born in May of 1989, that founder would have Saturn and Capricorn himself in his own individual chart. So that's also an interesting thing as well. Like he would have been born with Saturn and Capricorn and going through his Saturn return when this IPO happened. But let's go ahead and see. I talked about a lot of stuff already. And we talked about the business aspect. We talked about all their problems. In the company's prospectus, like they're offering to investors, where they kind of explain the company to the investors, what they wrote about the company is, because of the influence of social media and online identity, everyone wants to put their best image forward of themselves. And so our business is focusing on basically making people look better, which is interesting because we have this Libra rising chart here for when they went IPO. So I kind of find that interesting in a way too. But anyway, you guys, so their whole business was about like looking good or making people look good or making people feel better about themselves, but the details got really messed up. Okay. And talk about karma with the father. You start a business with your father that fails, right? The sun opposite Neptune and Saturn, Pluto, right? In Capricorn, you start a business with your father that fails. It's just kind of weird. Like if you think about the fact that that's his father right there, that was the CEO of the company. So I just find that interesting as well. Now let's go ahead and look at, I talked about how with that K2 in Capricorn, South Node in Capricorn, about the family, like sucking the value out of the company. And I want to talk to you guys a little bit more about some of their shitty customer service, because even people in the comments are commenting about their shitty customer service. And I did read online about, all their customer complaints. They have so many customer complaints, and they have like 1.38 stars as like a rating. Very, very bad. Fly Me to the Moon says, I'm born in May of 1990, and my chart is at 29 degrees Libra rising, like the company. Oh, Fly Me to the Moon, I'm so sorry. Fly Me to the Moon says, I was really drawn to the company when I saw the ad online. Yeah. And, what's interesting about seeing the company online is, they had this like SmileDirect club, like that's their kind of like logo thing. And they had like major stars supporting the company. It says during the 61st annual Grammy Awards, SmileDirect announced a collaboration with singer Shawn Mendes on a campaign to show that confidence is gained with an amazing smile. So there's Shawn Mendes. And in 2019, they opened up a ton of locations at CVS, and I think they did really good advertising. Look at the third house, okay? The third house for a company would be where you would see some advertising, and because that's your publication, your news stories, your advertising. They have Jupiter and Sagittarius in the third house, and Jupiter also rules the third house. So I do think that they had very targeted, like very strong advertising campaigns to try to kind of get at people. And Six of Swords says that dude looks like a creep. I know, right? And the founders of the company are from Detroit. I found that out too. My boyfriend's from Detroit. So I was like, look at these. And he rolled his eyes and he's like, sounds like Detroit. I was like, he's like a bunch of scammers or whatever. I'm like, oh my God, you're so funny. But anyway, so the advertising is interesting. Very strong advertising campaign, getting like stars and people like that to kind of, support it. And one of the commenters on the video here said that the advertising is what pulled her into the company. And as I was mentioning, like their customer service was the shittiest from what I've heard. Like people would just get canned responses or no responses or nothing. And when we think about customer service or the employees of a company, like I mentioned, we look at the sixth house, right? And we can see Neptune there. So giving people very vague answers, or maybe they aren't having the tools, or they don't have enough details, right? Because the customers know, with the customers representing Mars and Virgo, the customers know all like the details about their accounts. I mean, this is a big ticket item. This is like $2,000 we're spending here. And this has to do with your health and your teeth and all of that. So the customers are like wanting information. They're wanting to know more, but customer service doesn't really have, with the Neptune opposition in the sixth house of employees, they don't really have the information or anything that they can say or do from a practical perspective to help those customers. Okay. Neptune and Pisces. And you can also see the ruler of the 10th house, which is, the goals of the company or what the company is trying to reach. The ruler of the 10th house is the moon, and that moon is in Pisces in the sixth house. And I honestly think that they're like goal reaching, or like their ability to gain more as a company really had to do with their employees and their customer service. But I also think that they were ill-equipped to answer detailed, questions from the customer, because Pisces is not really a sign that's known for its detailed analysis. Now, I worked with a girl when I used to work in finance who was a Pisces, and she was like a sponge and absorbed everything, and she was very good. So I'm not trying to be mean to the Pisces here. I'm just saying, I don't think that their customer service had the information to share that like made any sense, right? And I think they probably were very vague with the answers that they gave to the customers. I think that they were probably like, even if they showed that they cared, right? Moon and Pisces in the sixth house of the employees, even if the employees showed the customer that they cared, they didn't have anything they could do, or they didn't have any answers that they could give. And it was a very vague thing. Also, if you look at the ruler of the sixth house of employees, right? The ruler of the sixth house is this Jupiter in the third house in Sagittarius. So I just was like, oh my God, when I looked at this, because the customers are actually in an exact square to the employees. Isn't that wild? Like online, there's all this information about, horrible, horrible customer service. Even one of the commenters here on the webcast mentioned that she had horrible customer service. The actual customers, the ruler of the seventh house is in a square to the ruler of the sixth house, which is the employees. So the employees and the customers are in a tension-filled square to one another. And, I bet with Jupiter and Sagittarius representing the employees there, I bet the employees would just, and especially with Neptune there too, opposing the customer, maybe they would just give them very vague answers or very upbeat, happy answers, or that totally didn't apply to their situation when they're trying to get detailed information, Mars and Virgo, about what is going on. And they're just like, we care about you, or here's this, free coupon or whatever, it just didn't solve the problem. And so you can see already that no, like the customers were, and, maybe the company failed to properly arm the employees with the information that they needed in order to help the company, or they were specifically told what to say. But in any case, the employees are in a square to the customers. So there's nothing that the employees can do to really help the customers besides give them some canned, upbeat response that doesn't solve any answers to their questions. And so that dude looks like a creep. Oh, Six of Swords. Were you talking about Shawn Mendes? Oh, Shawn has a very interesting birth chart. I didn't even know who he was, really. It's interesting. He was like their spokesperson. I didn't even really know who he was. Was he the creep you were talking about, Six of Swords? You know what's so funny? Like to me, you guys, is nothing is funny about this situation, but these guys that started the company, they have this huge smile behind them and they all look dejected pretty much, like Alex, one of the founders over here, looks like he's about to cry. This guy looks like, everything went to shit. If you look at their faces, I'm like, and one of the most obnoxious things to me is that their payment program is called Smile Pay. And I'm like, who the F is smiling about paying? You know what I mean? It just seems like it's really like, I don't know, like a kick in the nads. You know what I mean? It's like Smile Pay, right? And it's like very Saturn Pluto in Capricorn, like smile and pay while we fuck you over. It's ugly energy. I feel like that smile pay thing is very weird. Like how people make payments. I don't like that smile pay thing. Oh, you met the direct guy, Six of Swords. You met the SmileDirect guy. Yeah. Hi, return to sender. Hi there. Hi, my friend. And we're just talking about corporate greed here today. So here we go. But yeah, so we see the customers are in a square to the employees. There's no accountability. There's lots of complaints. Like they maybe would give with Jupiter and Sagittarius, maybe they would give very upbeat but vague responses, I'm guessing, to customers, which, because the name of their company is Smile, right? SmileDirect. And it's like, nobody's freaking smiling at this point. Like, get a fucking clue, right? To these people that were basically, I feel like, trying to defraud people. Now, the other thing that we talked about was another thing the company has been accused of is false advertising or defrauding people through false advertising. Now, when we talk about advertising campaigns at a company, we can definitely talk about the third house, as the third house has to do with communications. It has to do with socializing the company with people. It has to do with spreading a message. It's an air house. It does, the third and the ninth house both have to do with advertising, publication, all of that type of stuff. So like we said, we can see Jupiter and Sagittarius, like, probably they had a very good marketing campaign that really attracted people in, but that Jupiter and Sagittarius is also squaring that Neptune. Okay. So, being accused of false advertising, the ruler of the third house in the third house, square Neptune, false advertising, and probably blaming it on their employees, because it's showing up in the sixth house here, but not taking responsibility, blaming employees and stuff like that. Maybe the employees did engage in some false advertising as well. But you can see the T-square here with the Sun and Mars and Virgo opposite Neptune square Jupiter. Look at that T-square right there. Do you guys see it? Sun, Mars, and Virgo opposite Neptune, both are squaring Jupiter and Sagittarius. And so we see this kind of like misinformation, customers in the dark, customers being lied to, false advertising. Also, Mars and the Sun rule the second and the 11th house, which are the two money houses for a company. So it's like the money isn't there. They're acting all chipper, Jupiter and Sagittarius, and they're advertising and things like that, but nothing's really there. There's no man behind the curtain type of a thing, which is something that we can really pick up on with, Jupiter with Neptune stuff, particularly with Neptune stuff. Also, I mentioned to you guys, the company was valued at $8.9 billion when it went IPO, and valuation of a company would belong to the second house. And the ruler of the second house, that Mars, is also squaring Jupiter. We also have, future profitability being the 11th house. That Sun is also squaring Jupiter. So if we're talking about inflated valuations of a company, Sun square Jupiter, future ability to make profits, Sun square Jupiter, Mars square Jupiter, trouble with growth. trouble with motivating growth, especially opposite Neptune. And then Sun square Jupiter, when the Sun rules the 11th house of future profits, is also saying this valuation is completely over embellished, right? It's overly done, and the valuation isn't accurate. It's overly inflated valuation. And so again, this IPO chart of SmileDirect is a piece of crap. And the fact that anyone went public with this chart, I'm like, what were we doing here, folks? Right? And let's see what else here. And oh no, return to sender. You have an infected tooth. This is horrifying. No, I'm so sorry. Dental stuff is the worst. I cannot. Oh, I remember one time I was in a dentist office and I was just getting cavity filled years ago. And I looked over and I saw this contraption that looked like pliers. And literally my heart fell into my butt. I was like, what is that thing? And I mean, I'm such a freak about my teeth. Like, I go to the dentist like 3 times a year, and I had a cavity a long time ago. I haven't had any cavities for a long time, but just seeing that plier thing, I was like, what is going on? But teeth, issues with teeth are like so traumatic. They're very, very traumatic for people and very painful too. So I'm so sorry. Return to sender. Yeah. And Holly says, I hope you're swishing with some clove oil diluted in warm water. Return to sender. Oh, thank you, Holly, for suggesting that. And Fly Me to the Moon says, I have Neptune in the 3rd house. Yeah, I also have Neptune in the 3rd house. Fly Me to the Moon. That can be really good for mediumship and communicating in a mediumship way, but bad for other things. And Return to Sender said, thank you. I walked out of the last dentist place because they wanted to pull it. Oh my God, Return to Sender. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Dentists. Oh my God. They can be, dentists can be so rude and weird too. Like, yeah, no, I know. My boyfriend's having a major issue right now too. He needs a cleaning, and his regular dentist is just horrible. They've just been horrible. So I'm telling him to go to mine. But yeah, you guys, I mean, teeth issues are the worst. And the fact that this company is just playing on people's anxieties is even worse. It's just bad. And so this is a really tough energy. Now, we talked a lot about, is there anything else that I wanted to mention on the chart? The inflated values, the false advertising, the employees too. The employees themselves are also in a square to Neptune. And some of the most sad stories I read were employees who were getting laid off right before Christmas time of this year, and also employees who just became employees recently with the company and also signed up for, as they became employees, also signed up for their services. And now they're laid off, have no job, and they're having to pay for their teeth, for the teeth stuff, because not only did they become an employee, but they also bought the aligners as well. And so the employees are also squaring Neptune. So they're getting fucked over too, so nobody in this chart is really a winner. Perhaps besides the family that originally got really rich, but at the same time, even though this family sucked all the value out of this company at the IPO, I do think that, Saturn, Pluto, South Node, and Capricorn is going to have some consequences for this family too. So I think they probably are going to get in, and I'm going to explain why in a little bit, why that may be, but that's what I think. Okay. And so anyway, we've got that. Now let me show you guys the chart for the bankruptcy. Okay. So On the inside of the ring here is SmileDirect's IPO chart. On the outside is September 29th of 2023, when the company declared Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Now, the company continued to operate, and not everybody knew that. I mean, they still were signing up customers at the time when they went bankrupt, even up until like the day that they made the announcement that they were ending, like in December. Like, they were still signing people up. And a lot of people that were new customers didn't see that they had filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy, because oftentimes when companies file for Chapter 11, they just go through restructuring, they fix things, and, they continue on. But like I said, nobody really wanted to touch this rotten egg with a 10-foot pole. And what ended up happening, and Fly Me to the Moon says, I think you and me have the same chart because I'm also a Taurus. Oh, yeah. Fly Me to the Moon. Yes, we could be birthday twins. Who knows? And so here on the outside is when they went bankrupt in last September. Now, right away, you guys are going to notice, because you've got Mars in Libra with the South Node in Libra. And as you guys remember from last September, if you were kind of following astrology then, there was a long Mars K2 conjunction in Libra. And at the end of September, we were getting ready for the eclipses that were coming up in October that were happening in Aries and Libra. So we've got the North Node in Aries, we've got the South Node in Libra, right on top of that ascendant from their IPO, and right with Mars in Libra right there. So you can see transiting Mars in Libra with K2 is in a conjunction with their ascendant, threatening their stability, their longevity, etc. And what I would call for this company a major crisis point for them when they declared this bankruptcy, because with Mars there, it's like, we need to take action right now. And if we don't take action right now, we are going to lose everything. And so, Mars coming on their ascendant with the South Node, with the eclipses happening right there in October, shortly after that, is basically saying, we got to move fast and we got to move now. And it's interesting in the sign of Libra too, because they maybe were focused on finding business partnerships or other partnerships with other people who could help dig themselves out of this hole that they found themselves sucked into. And one thing we have to remember about the South Node is K2 is very fierce, and K2 is also not very good at like rationalizing things. And in Libra, them searching for a partnership or another business relationship to save them and pull them out of, their problem with the crisis of the Chapter 11 bankruptcy, like they really feel like, we got to move on this right now, and taking fierce action to find that. But of course, the family had sucked the value basically out of the company, I feel like, when it went IPO, and the rest was just paper value or speculation value. And so there was nothing there there was no other partnership. Nobody came in to like save them. And an astrologer may have predicted that maybe someone might come in and save them, because we can see Jupiter flowing through the 8th house in Taurus, them looking for a savior to help them pay down their debt or do something with their debt. But that didn't happen, and Jupiter isn't always the one that can save us. So that was not happening there. They just basically they're just saying, we have a shit ton of debt. Jupiter and Taurus in the 8th house of debt. And so it's like, we got a shit ton of debt, like more debt than you could even imagine. Like, we have $900 million in debt. And who's going to save us now, really, is what this chart is saying. And so they're working hard to try to find business partnerships to take over, and they're under fire to do that. You guys will also notice too, so I didn't talk too much about the moon in Pisces ruling the 10th house. Now, the other thing I didn't really mention about the IPO chart is that that chart is mainly mutable. It has a couple things in cardinal signs, but the only fixed energy it has is the Uranus and Taurus. And the rest of the chart is mutable. And, Moon in Pisces for a business, I mean, again, like, I think the company had some goodwill built up towards it, maybe because they were having good sales or things like that. But look at Saturn. In 2023, Saturn was basically retrograding and going back and forth over and over and over again. This moon in Pisces at 1 degree Pisces, which is ruling the 10th house of their goals and ambitions and dreams for the company, which they never actually accomplished. Like all of 2023, the company was trying to become profitable. They were trying to, like make more money, and they were doing layoffs and things like that in order to accomplish that, and trying to find business partnerships and all of that. But we see Saturn showing up on the ruler of the 10th house there, that moon in Pisces, and it's like, boom, like, sad losses is what I wrote down for the meaning of that. Like sad failures, sad losses. Like we failed. We never became profitable. We never reached our 10th house goal of becoming a profitable company. Like we're a total complete failure as a company, basically, is kind of, what that implies there with the Saturn coming up on that moon and them having to file bankruptcy at that time. It's like, we did not accomplish our goal. We don't have enough revenue, we're kaput, we're done. And so we've got that going on, and, the disappointments and the failure or the sadness, just from it. And probably, it's showing up in the 6th house, the employees probably feeling like crap. They're getting laid off throughout the entire year, they're all excited to start working there. And then, it's just a huge depressing failure fest. Okay. Like, and also too, Saturn is demanding them to get realistic about their goals and dreams and ambitions, right? Like Saturn is checking their energy, their 10th house energy of ambitions and goals, and saying, it didn't happen. It didn't happen. And now you're going to have to pay the piper. And so that is when they filed for bankruptcy. And the other thing that I want to point out to you guys here too, that's very important. I think it's interesting that the moon is in Aries at 10 degrees Aries in the 7th house of the customers at that time, squaring the nodes, which are there with the nodes are, sorry, not there. The nodes are here. So it's almost like the customers are, the transiting moon in Aries was squaring the nodes that day, and also the Saturn as well. But the customers are getting more fired up, or they're starting to hear about things going on. They're getting more concerned about, can they accomplish what they want to do type of energy. Okay. So the customers versus the family and all of that. So you can kind of see that with the moon in Aries there. But the big thing I want to really point out to you guys is this Neptune. Okay. So all of 2023, Neptune has been in these last few degrees of Pisces, and Neptune has progressed from opposing the Sun and Mars, which I talked about representing the 2nd house of money and the 11th house of profits, that Neptune has moved on from opposing the Sun and Mars and now is opposing the Venus and the Mercury. Okay. So the Neptune, transiting Neptune, is now opposite Mercury and Venus. Okay. The natal, or the Venus and the Mercury of the business. And what's interesting is this Venus is at 27 degrees Virgo, and transiting Neptune is at 25 degrees Pisces. And you can see what is happening, right? The company, the ruler of the 1st house, the company, Venus, is dissolving opposite Neptune. And next year, as we move into 2024, Neptune is going to be in the very, very last degrees of Pisces, like 29 degrees Pisces, etc. And we are going to, at that point next year, see the complete dissolution of this company as Neptune moves through. There's those even more final degrees of Pisces. We're going to see the dissolution of the company. Okay. The ruler of the ascendant, opposite transiting Neptune, going into next year as well as the company dissolves. Now, the company, of course, Neptune represents dissolving things. And as we recall from the very beginning of this whole adventure that started in 2019, Neptune was a major player, and Neptune is going to be a major player as this company dissolves and completely disappears. Okay. So I think that that's very interesting too, where Neptune is moved to opposing the ruler of the ascendant. And also in 2023, there was a bunch of lawsuits against SmileDirect for making customers sign NDAs, non-disclosure agreements. And basically, they were telling customers that were not happy with their service that if you're not happy, we'll give you a refund, but you have to sign an NDA, meaning you can never talk about what happened or why you're unhappy with those services. And they've been doing this for a while, right? And we can see Neptune creeping up on Mercury. And if we're talking about deceptive non-disclosure agreements from a business capacity, we can really be talking about Mercury and Virgo opposite Neptune and Pisces, okay? Deceptive business practices as it relates to non-disclosure agreements. And in June of 2023, the company was actually involved in lawsuits, and I think it was $63 million that they had to pay out as a result of them doing these deceptive non-disclosure agreements with their customers in order so they could get their refunds. And basically, like, the court came back and said, no, you can't do that. You can't make your customers not talk about something. And so all of these kind of like deceptive business practices are being addressed in 2023, even more so as Neptune moves up to oppose Mercury. Okay. And basically, the Attorney General in Washington, D.C. sued SmileDirect, and I quote, for unfair and deceptive business practices. And we see, Mercury and Virgo representing business practices, what we do on a day-to-day basis with our business, opposite that transiting Neptune and Pisces. So yeah, completely deceptive and unfair business practices, unlawfully using NDAs to manipulate online reviews was what they were doing. And you can also see here the ascendant of SmileDirect is squaring that Pluto as well. So talking about control, right? Manipulation, control, power. Okay, so they've got all of that going on in the chart as well. And Princess PM, thank you for your comment, Princess PM. Thanks for this chart episode. This is awesome. Oh, I'm so glad you're enjoying it. Thank you for being here. And Holly made a comment that this is highly illegal. Yeah, it is highly illegal to ask your customers to do that. And they got in huge trouble for that. And it's another thing of them trying to, manipulate customers or them trying to control things. And, as Neptune, because Neptune isn't going to leave Pisces next year. Neptune is just going to get even more into the last degrees of Pisces. And so we're going to see more things coming out. We're going to see more disillusions, more deception, more dissolving, like more Neptune for this company that is essentially now screwed because of what they did. And I mean, so I think it's very interesting what is going on here in the bankruptcy itself as the company is unwinding, literally the company opposing Neptune dissolving. And let's see, did I have anything else that I wanted to? I am going to talk for a minute about Pluto and Capricorn. As you can see, this is at the bankruptcy time when Pluto was at 27 degrees Capricorn. Obviously, Pluto moves very, very slowly, and Pluto has been in Capricorn for 15 years. But as I mentioned at the beginning of this reading, as this company is dissolving in 2024, we have the last hoorah of Pluto and Capricorn in 2024. And basically, we're seeing like the fallout of all the greed and the things that have been going on for the last 15 years. And this is just one of the many examples of the way that these people are screwing people over. The other thing that I would say here too is that the company originally, like the two founders, the two young guys that I showed you guys earlier, Jordan and Alex, like these two guys, Alex, Jordan, these two guys, they started thinking about starting this company back in 2012. And then I found some documents saying that the company actually incorporated on December 1st of 2013. And then I believe they started operations in 2014. Okay. But here's another thing I want to tell you guys about the Neptune cycle of this company, because Neptune is in a sign for about 14 years. And, you know, this company, these two founders of the company started thinking about doing this company in 2012, 2013, as Neptune was entering the early degrees of Pisces. And as Neptune is hitting the final degrees of Pisces 14 years later, the company is dissolving. So it's like this company was alive for an entire Neptune cycle and is dying at the end of this Neptune cycle. And so obviously this Neptune is a very important player in this chart. I also talked about the Saturn, South Node, and Pluto and how they're very important too. And what's interesting to me too that I didn't mention earlier is the customers are actually in a trine to the Saturn South Node Pluto. Okay. My customers, Mars and Virgo, is in a trine to the Saturn, K2, Pluto, and Capricorn. And I just wanted to point that out because it's like, okay, why are the customers trining these planets in the fourth house? And as I mentioned earlier, that this business was a big thing when the pandemic came about, because you didn't actually have to go see a dentist. You could just change your teeth at home. Like the molds would come to you at home. You could mail them back, and you didn't. And again, in 2020, nobody wanted to go to a dentist or go in public or do anything, but you could do all this stuff through the mail from the comforts of your home, which the customer here, the money, the profits, the customer, like they're all in a trine basically to this Saturn, Pluto, South Node conjunction in the fourth house, which tells me like the company really did capitalize. And of course, in September of 2019, this company didn't necessarily know that the pandemic was going to be coming, but that was also something that went well for the company in the fact that the pandemic didn't ruin their business. It actually inspired their business to have more customers. But ultimately, as we talked about, the greed of the family, I think, also sucking the value out of the company and their inability and failure to grow the company and gain more market share, but also their deceptive business practices and the fact that they were trying to basically cut out the middleman, which is the orthodontist, right? And when you're messing around with people's health and teeth, you need an orthodontist, right? So the company is just, you know, has a faulty business model on top of everything, right? So I think that that's interesting too, because there are some strong aspects in this chart with the Mars trining the Saturn, South Node Pluto, but I actually think that has more to do with them being able to customers being able to change their teeth from the comforts of their own home on their own time plan and their own time scale, and particularly during the pandemic, because the pandemic was really famous for that Saturn Pluto configuration that was really horrible, that basically caused everything to go down the way that it did. So, their business model unknowingly took advantage of that. But I also see that in the chart too, with the trine between the customer, Saturn, South Node, and Pluto. Okay. But again, the customer is opposite Neptune. So the customer may not even know because the customer's in the 12th house opposite Neptune, the customer may not even know all the pitfalls that are in store for them, So the very last thing that I want to look at is the Mercury retrograde, because the title of this whole video is a Mercury retrograde in Capricorn story. And I haven't even really talked about too much yet about the Mercury retrograde. And I actually just saw the story come out on Mercury retrograde, because I told you guys at the beginning that ABC News published the story on December 13th, the day of the Mercury retrograde, that SmileDirect was no more. They left their customers hanging by a thread, not knowing what to do. Are they going to get refunds, et cetera, et cetera? Business fails. Okay, Mercury retrograde in Capricorn. And that really started me because I saw it happen on the day of the retrograde. I'm like, well, wait a second, And as we mentioned earlier, Capricorn has to do with business. Capricorn also has to do with the joints and the bones and the teeth. So it was kind of like, okay, this is like a pretty perfect example of Mercury retrograde in Capricorn. But as I dug further into it, I found even more things, and I wish I had the charts of the founders. They're not really public personas, so I don't have their charts, but I wish I did. And as astrologers, we just want data. That's what we want more than anything. Give me data, right? But anyway, I just want to show you guys what happened when Mercury went retrograde. So Mercury went retrograde at 8 degrees Capricorn here. And Mercury at 8 degrees Capricorn on December 13th is really when this story started to really gain a lot of traction and popularity. And you can see that it is in a conjunction here with the Saturn in Capricorn. Okay, it's 5 degrees off, but it is in a conjunction with the Saturn in Capricorn and the South Node in Capricorn. And so, the news story broke, and basically, the family at this point knows that the business failed, and essentially the business is done, and everything is coming out in the news, of course, with Mercury in Capricorn. Now, the interesting thing about this Mercury retrograde in Capricorn is that it is going to retrograde back to 22 degrees Sagittarius, okay? And it's not going to go direct. Mercury is not going to go direct until the first of the year. And as Mercury moves back to 22 degrees Sagittarius, it's going to square the Neptune of the business, and also all these planets in Virgo in the 12th house. And so I predict the situation is just going to become even more confusing, and people are not going to know what to do, and they already don't, right? But the problem is as this Mercury retrogrades back into Sagittarius and is squaring the Pisces planets and the Virgo planets that we already talked about, we don't have clear answers. We don't know what's going on. We don't know. So, and I don't think, obviously it's going to take some time to get answers on the refunds and what's going to happen. And we can see this Mercury at 8 degrees Capricorn is going to go backwards to where it's going to be in Sagittarius and squaring the customer representing Mars and Virgo, and Mercury in Sagittarius. There's going to be more pissed off stories of customers demanding answers for sure. And this is already a sensitive time for them anyway. as a business, because anything that triggers these mutable angles is definitely going to spell trouble for them. And right now we have Mars in Sagittarius, and right there, okay, in the sun at the time that the story broke, the sun was at 20 degrees Sagittarius, squaring the company's Neptune, okay? So people couldn't believe it, right? When the story broke, transiting sun square the company's Neptune, I can't believe this is happening. What's happening? Oh my gosh, right? Like, I can't believe it. And people just feeling like really deceived about everything. And you can see on the day Mercury went retrograde, we have 3 planets piled up in Sagittarius at this very sensitive point where they're starting to square all the stuff in, Mars opposite Neptune, the customer opposite Neptune with Mars there. People are pissed, right? The company is having a Mars square at this moment, which is also involving that Neptune. Like, it's a hot mess for sure. And as the Mercury retrograde in Capricorn moves back into Sagittarius, it's just going to become even more of a hot mess, more confusing, more, I don't know what's going on, more stories coming out. I think like it's not going to really get any better, I feel. And it may not even get any better at all until I believe it's January 14th when Mercury gets out of its shadow from this retrograde. And by that point, Mercury is going to be moving over Saturn, K2, Pluto, which hopefully it's not bad news for people that need refunds. You know what I mean? I hope it's not bad news for people that need refunds, but there could be some pretty sad, depressing, gnarly news about the company at that time. And I think as we just go to next year, as the company is dissolving with Neptune opposing the ruler of the ascendant for the company, we're just going to keep getting more information about their deceptions, about their lies. Is there going to be any money left over to give refunds to customers? It doesn't look that good, you guys. It doesn't look that good, but I certainly hope that there is money left over to help the customers and help bring the customers whole again. But we have to see how bad this situation truly is and how bad the money is truly. And it sounds like it's really bad. So we shall see what happens in the future with the refunds, and we shall keep a close eye on this story. But I think it's very interesting that because the bankruptcy that happened earlier in the year, there wasn't a lot of like media attention around it because they were still open at that time and they still were taking customers and servicing customers. It wasn't until the Mercury retrograde hit that, the Mercury retrograde in Capricorn, that shit really hit the fan. And so that's why I'm calling this Mercury retrograde in Capricorn story time. Okay. So everybody, thank you so much for being here with me today. I hope you enjoyed the reading. I hope that was informative for you. I'd love to hear any of your comments, thoughts, or feedback. And I will have a link below if you're wanting to book a natal chart reading with me and get more into the specifics of your own natal chart. I would love to do that for you. So thank you so much, everybody, for being here. I wish you a very happy day.